My breath caught. Apparently, he'd been struggling with depression and had stopped responding to family for a few days. No one had seen him since Tuesday. My heart started racing. Even after everything, the idea of something bad happening to him hit hard. I spent the next few hours glued to my phone, waiting for updates. My logical brain knew it wasn't my place to step in, but my heart wouldn't shut up. By evening, Clara texted again. They found him. He's okay, just needed space. He checked himself into a wellness program. Relief washed over me, sharp and overwhelming. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not in a maybe we'll get back together way, but in a this is what endings actually look like way. It wasn't neat or poetic. It was messy and human. People fall apart. They hurt each other, they try to fix themselves. And if you're lucky, you get to learn from it without becoming bitter. Liam noticed I'd been quiet one night. We were watching a movie, and I guess I zoned out because he paused it and said, "You okay?" I told him what happened. He didn't judge or get jealous. He just nodded and said, "I get it. You cared about him once. That doesn't just disappear." That simple kindness made my throat tighten. He added, "But caring doesn't mean you have to reopen the door." And that, right there, was exactly what I needed to hear. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from Ethan. It was long, raw, and honest. He talked about therapy, about realizing how much of his behavior came from fear and insecurity. He said he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He just wanted to thank me for being the one person who ever tried to understand him. At the end, he wrote, "You once said love should make you feel safe. I never gave you that. I hope someone else does." I folded the letter, placed it in a box of old memories, and felt at peace. No tears this time. Just gratitude that I could finally close that chapter with grace. Spring came. The trees bloomed again, and for the first time since the breakup, I felt excited about the future. Not because I knew what was coming, but because I was okay with not knowing. Liam and I kept seeing each other, slowly building something that felt like friendship first, love second. He wasn't a grand replacement for Ethan, he was just himself. And I was finally myself, too. One morning, we went hiking up a local trail. Halfway up, I stopped to catch my breath, looked out over the city and said, "It's weird, isn't it? How you can lose everything and still end up okay." He smiled. "Maybe because you didn't lose yourself." That stuck with me. Because he was right, I hadn't. I just buried parts of myself under someone else's chaos. And now I was digging them out again, piece by piece. A few weeks later, I wrote a letter to myself. I'd read about the idea in therapy, writing to your old self, who went through pain and never got a proper goodbye. It started with, "Dear Emma who thought she wasn't enough." I wrote about all the nights she stayed, all the times she blamed herself, all the ways she tried to love someone who couldn't meet her halfway. Then I wrote, "You did your best, and that was enough." When I finished, I cried, not from sadness, but from pride. It felt like closing the final page of a long, difficult book. And that's the thing I wish more people talked about. Sometimes closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes it arrives through quiet moments, a text from an unlikely source, a kind word from someone new, or just realizing you can breathe again without the weight of what-ifs pressing on your chest. I didn't get a fairy tale ending, but I got something better, peace, self-respect, and the ability to hope again. And that's what I call happy. It's funny, looking back now. When I first wrote my post here months ago, I was heartbroken, shaky, convinced I'd never be the same again. Now I'm sitting in my tiny apartment on a rainy Sunday morning, sipping coffee, my dog curled up at my feet, and I feel still. Not stuck, not empty, just still. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm has finally passed. Life didn't unfold in any dramatic, movie-style way. It just kept going. Liam and I kept seeing each other slowly, quietly. I liked that there was no pressure. Some weekends we'd go hiking. Other times we'd just sit at my kitchen table, both working on our laptops, occasionally trading jokes or snacks. There was a rhythm to it, familiar but new. One evening, I caught myself laughing, like really laughing, over something dumb he'd said about my failed attempt at baking banana bread. And mid-laugh, I realized I wasn't waiting for anything to go wrong. I wasn't comparing him to Ethan. I wasn't bracing for disappointment. I was present. It felt like breathing clean air after years of smoke. Sometime in late March, I went to visit my parents for the first time in a while. They live a few hours away, in a quiet town where nothing ever happens and everyone knows everyone else's business. When I arrived, my mom hugged me tighter than usual. "You seem lighter," she said. I smiled. "Yeah, I think I am." That night, we sat on the porch after dinner, sipping tea and watching the stars. My mom asked about Liam. "He's good," I said. "We're taking things slow." She smiled knowingly. "Good. The right kind of love doesn't rush you. It meets you where you are." Something about that sentence stuck with me. The next morning, I went for a walk around my old neighborhood. The same path I used to take in high school when I needed to clear my head. As I walked, I thought about everything that had happened in the last 2 years. Losing Ethan. Rebuilding my sense of self. Learning how to be alone without being lonely. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the story was about heartbreak anymore. It was about evolution. Sometimes people leave not because you're unlovable, but because their role in your life was to teach you something you couldn't have learned otherwise. Ethan taught me to stop giving more than I had. Maya taught me that empathy doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. Liam taught me that love can be calm and still count. And I taught myself how to start again. When I got back home, there was another letter waiting for me. This one wasn't from Ethan. It was from future me, well, sort of. See, as part of my therapy homework, my therapist had asked me to write a letter to myself a year into the future, describing what I hoped my life would look like. I'd forgotten I'd done it. The envelope was dated exactly 1 year ago. Inside was a letter written in my messy handwriting. "Dear future me, I hope you've stopped checking his socials. I hope you've learned how to sleep through the night again. I hope you're smiling more, laughing again, maybe even trusting someone new. But mostly, I hope you know you're enough on your own." I smiled reading it because, somehow, I'd become that person. I wasn't healed, because healing isn't a finish line, but I was whole. A few days later, Liam and I went on a weekend trip to the coast. We stayed at this tiny inn overlooking the ocean, the kind with mismatched furniture and salt-stained windows. On our second night there, we were sitting on the beach wrapped in blankets, watching the waves roll in under a cloudy sky. He said, "You ever think about how weird time is? Like you can be heartbroken 1 year and completely at peace the next." I smiled. "Yeah, it's weird, but it's kind of beautiful too." He looked at me for a moment before saying, "I don't know what the future looks like for us, but I really like this." I nodded. "Me too," and that was enough. A month later, I got an email from Ethan's sister again, short this time. "Hey, just wanted to let you know Ethan's doing better. He's working again, seeing a therapist, even got a dog. I think he's finally okay." I stared at that message for a while, then smiled. I didn't respond, but I whispered, "Good." That was the real closure, I think. Knowing he was okay, knowing I didn't need to fix him anymore. Time kept moving. Spring melted into summer, and my life quietly expanded in small, meaningful ways. I started teaching pottery on weekends. Nothing big, just a beginner class for people who wanted to learn something new. One of my students was a middle-aged woman who'd just gotten divorced. One day after class, she said, "You seem so grounded. How do you do it?" I told her the truth. I wasn't, not for a long time. But I stopped trying to control the ending and started focusing on the middle. She smiled like that meant something to her. And I realized it did to me, too. By the time autumn came around again, Liam and I had grown closer. We never labeled it, and that was fine. We just were. There were nights we stayed up late talking about everything from childhood dreams to the weird way people drift in and out of your life. One night, he said, "Do you ever wonder what your old self would think if she could see you now?" I thought about that for a moment and said, "She'd probably be shocked I didn't fall apart completely, but also proud I didn't stay stuck." He nodded. "You've got this quiet strength about you. It's rare." I smiled. Took a lot of tears to build it. As I'm writing this, it's been almost exactly 2 years since Ethan left. 2 years since I thought my world ended. 2 years since I started over, brick by brick, morning by morning. People always say heartbreak changes you. I used to hate that idea, like pain was something to be grateful for. But now I get it. It doesn't change who you are, it strips away who you pretended to be so you can finally meet yourself again. I met myself, and I like her. She's calmer, softer, stronger. She knows her worth, doesn't depend on who stays. Sometimes I still think about Ethan. Not in a longing way, just as someone I once loved, someone who helped shape who I became. And maybe that's the most honest kind of closure there is, remembering without bitterness. Because the truth is, not every love story ends with two people walking off into the sunset. Some end quietly, in separate places, with both people finally finding peace. And that's still a happy ending. Last weekend, I made a new pottery piece. A small bowl, perfectly round, smooth edges, no cracks this time. On the bottom, I carved a tiny word into the clay before firing it. Enough, because I am, because I always was. If you're reading this and you're where I was a year ago, curled up on your couch wondering how someone could love you so deeply and still leave, please hear this. You will survive. You will wake up one morning and realize your heart beats calmly again. You'll laugh at something stupid and realize it's been hours since you thought about them. You'll stop checking their socials. You'll stop rewriting the story. And one day, without even noticing, you'll stop waiting for closure because you'll be living it. It won't come all at once. It'll come in tiny, quiet moments, like the first breath after a long cry, like sunlight through your blinds on a lazy Sunday morning. And when it does, you'll understand what I finally do. The happiest endings aren't about getting back what you lost. They're about realizing you never needed it to be whole. Hey Reddit, it's been a while. I figured I'd drop one last update because when I posted the first part of this story, I was a mess. And I know how comforting it can be to see that things do get better. Liam and I are still together. Slowly, steadily, honestly. He's met my parents. We still have no grand plans, and that's what I love most about it. It's easy, real, unforced. But more than that, I'm good, truly good. I love my job again. I take long walks. I wake up grateful. I've even started planning that solo trip I once postponed forever ago. Sometimes I still read my old journal entries and can't believe how far I've come. I thought losing Ethan would define me. Instead, it refined me. I guess if there's a moral to this story, it's this. Don't be afraid of endings. They're just beginnings in disguise. And if you ever find yourself sitting on the floor surrounded by the pieces of a life you thought would last forever, pick one up. Start again. Build something new. It might take time. It might be quiet. But I promise, one day you'll look around and realize you built peace from the rubble. And it'll be the most beautiful thing you've ever made.